Welcome, Sean.
Good morning. Thank you, Diane, for that nice introduction. Very friendly. Well, um, I wanted to start by kind of sharing my passion for the pool business. And so I wanted to show you a picture. This picture started my pool career back in the early 80s. And all of those kids in that picture, that pool, my parents built that pool, and that's the house that I grew up in. And that's when I fell in love with this business. And it's really brought itself. The second picture is the same pool and the same people. So there was five of us, and the bottom picture shows what that family's grown toward. And I wanted to start out with that because in today's session about budgeting, I'm going to cover as a pool contractor that manages a company that supports over 100 commercial pools today. Like today, we're gonna go out and we're gonna do our very best to keep those swimmers safe in those pools. So in today's discussion, as I talk about strategies and budgeting, I'm also going to talk about ethics because as a CAM and as a board member, um, those two groups are responsible for the safety of the people that are on your properties, and that's an awesome responsibility, and we have that same mindset. So I just wanted to start with that. Those people that are in that pool right there that you see those pictures, I love them. They're my family, and those are my nieces and nephews, and those are my kids. And we need to be thinking that same mindset about the people that get in our pool. So I'll cover more about that in just a few minutes. Okay, so the course description is I think today a little bit, I'm going to give you some transparency. I'm going to share with you what goes on behind the scenes of making sure, what does it take to really run a commercial pool, which is not a residential pool. Totally different world. So, today, people on the webcast, um, the majority of you probably have a pool at your house, and you probably grew up in a pool as I did. That pool was very different. Water is not water. Filtration is not filtration. So I'm going to share with you what technologies are available now to make that job easier and safer. And I'm going to share with you best practices toward smarter budgeting. And I'm going to share with you a lot of good news, I hope, really. So we're going to roll through some trends that have occurred both pre and post. We're all tired of hearing that COVID word, but it did change our industry and the challenges of budgets, um, the alternatives that are available that were not available in the past that are really making a difference in our industry and keeping our swimmers safer. The other piece is something that happens every single year in Florida, and you know what that is. And it happens right, especially if we're on the beach. That's the storms. Equipment life cycles, and how your budget may or may not be ready for that. And I'll give you some alternatives. Energy efficiency savings that'll help you pay for some of this. And I'll explain some of the math behind that too. And then uh, the last bullet you see there is the intent behind it is I'm going to share with you my thoughts on best practices when working with providers like a pool company. And that also carries over probably to Terrascape, just any of your vendors. And I'll share with you our viewpoints on that too. And hopefully there's some things that we can all get better at. So let me start with, it's common in our business that a CAM or a board will send us an email or make a phone call to the office and ask, hey, we'd like for you guys to give us a price. Um, I'd ask for you to take a different mindset. When you send out a request for a price for taking care of what's your most used amenity, your swimming pool, um, I would encourage you not to treat it as asking for a price like you would a case of toilet paper from maybe HD Supply. There's some very important pieces of diligence that I'll share with you that can make it a much more strategic approach and safer and diligent approach. Um, because again, it goes back to making sure that you're keeping the residents safe and protecting them. And the pool really is the most expensive asset that most properties have. Elevators are expensive. We know that. We've got to keep those safe. I would keep that same mindset towards your pool. Um, and I also have some empathy. Like I hear weekly that the stress that HOAs have meeting their increased cost, especially insurance. We all landscaping, staff turnover. All partners that serve your community are in the same boat with you. We are all in the same spot, and during this economic life cycle that we're in. So we're all aware of it. Pool budgeting is not simply just increasing, a 3% increase year over year. That's not an accurate amount to match the hypothetical budget. So keep that in mind. And I've definitely heard many times through the years that, hey, we're over budget. We haven't spent this much in years past. And I'll tell you, in my experience, the main reason for that would be, in almost all cases, is that prior year kicking the can has kind of got you to a point. It's gotten some properties to a point where now we've got to catch up. We've got to make up for those years of kicking the can, of not solving and fixing items that should have been addressed. So in addition to budgeting, I'll also talk about strategies to make all best efforts for what's called zero downtime or zero liability time. And in the pool business, there are points where a pool is down, or I'm thankful today, knock on wood, we don't have one that's down today, but it very well can happen sometime throughout the day. But there's also times for what's called zero liability time, and you can't see that. You don't hear it and you can't see it. I'll tell you more about what that is. So cost increases. Here's what I would, to put a good educated viewpoint on it. If you're a CAM, or if you're in charge of the budget, or if you're a voting board member, I would encourage you to go back and look at what you paid for chemicals last year in June versus this year or July. And then go back 2 years and look what the cost is. And understand some of that cost. And also make sure when you're looking at those costs, I'll tell you a secret to what happens sometimes. What will happen is, as costs rise for, let's call it chlorine as an example, then sometimes a property will say, well, let's not spend money on other types of chemicals, and let's try to even our budget out. Now that's a mistake. So what happens is when you don't say spend $50 for, say, a chemical that will make sure that the water is properly balanced, that $50 that you supposedly saved can cause that heater warranty, that $5,000 heater warranty, to be void. So I met with a manufacturer this morning. They're in our industry, there's the big three: Jandy, Hayward, Pentair. And I met with one of them this morning, one of the big three. And one of the, we talked about heater warranties. And the number one reason why heater warranty is void is based on water chemistry. So I share that story, that real life story. And we've had cases where, we're a warranty center where the manufacturer will not warranty that heater because the property did not have the proper water chemistry. They tried to save $50 as an example on bicarb as an example in that case. The second piece of it is the pool finish. So as chemical costs rise, people say, well, let's not buy calcium. Don't worry about the calcium. Well, that can impact your pool finish, and that's a $50,000 problem. So it's much better to spend $50 on the right chemicals versus not have the right to void your warranty. So that water, it's very common that that the property will say, well, my water's beautiful, it's clear but you can't see with the human eye the etching and corrosion effects. You've got to test for that. So let me round this out. Chemical costs and trends. The trends that I've seen is that as chlorine has increased in price, so as an example, if you have pool shore today, as an example, that cost has gone up. Or if you buy chemicals from your local store and your maintenance person brings it to the property, our chemical costs And we go through about 4,000 gallons a week, have doubled since the pandemic, since COVID. Um, so, but don't let that cost not allow you to do the right maintenance to protect your swimmers and to protect your asset, which is the swimming pool. Um, I believe that it is negligent not to be adopting maintenance programs that don't reduce chlorine and acid costs. So we have implemented processes that actually have reduced the amount of chlorine, and in some cases literally zeroed out acid use. And I'll share more with you about what those trends are and maintenance programs that can help you save money and provide a better outcome for your swimmers. Um, Now, when you manage 100 commercial properties, the number one complaint you get is dirty tile. That's what happens. So go out to your pool today. So today is July the 23rd. It's Wednesday. You got through a big weekend. It's now Wednesday. Go take a look at that tile. And if it's dirty today on Wednesday, maybe just ask why. So there are chemicals and maintenance programs that you can use that can reduce the strain on your maintenance staff if they're maintaining the pool, and or your pool company that's maintaining that pool. And these chemicals were not around back in the 80s. And when you get ready for the Labor Day weekend that's coming up in about 5 more weeks, you want to make sure that you've got that pool in perfect condition before Labor Day, because you know what's going to happen on Labor Day. So the old school way of doing things just doesn't work anymore. So you want to make sure that your staff is educated on these newer maintenance programs and chemicals that will help them do a better job, because their job is already hard as it is. And sometimes I'll get told that, well, we don't have, we've done it this way for years. We've taken care of it this way for years. Well, I just don't think that's the right mindset. Think of this example. At one point, doctors would actually prescribe cigarettes to lower anxiety. Well, that's crazy. So doing it the old way that we've always done it is not the right way. Let me move to the last point, which is in the labor market. The labor market continues to have increased staff cost. Many times the past 3 years, I've heard a statement, we can't afford to have our maintenance guy quit. We can't afford to upset him or her. So the service industry, blue collar labor market, continues to be a very tight and transient market right now. There's still an hourly wage pressure for increases. I'll share with you a real number. At our company, we've got close to 30 employees, and our labor expense on our P&L is 50% higher year to date in 25 than it was last year in 24. That's the labor market. So what I encourage properties to do is to make sure that you're contributing toward the growth, and that you're taking care of your people on site, so that and the halo effect of that is a better property, and it's a better pool if they are responsible for taking care of that pool. So I'd encourage you to make decisions toward paying a little more than market value, and what you perceive market to be, so that you have lower turnover and a higher caliber team to accommodate your pool needs and your landscape needs and those types of things. I actually told the people that cut our grass, I said, you need to raise your rate. And I told them to raise it by 30% because that was fair market value, and they were just undercutting themselves. Okay, so let's now move into the unpredictable cost. So unpredictable cost. Actually, let me pause here. I'm going to do a pop quiz. And the first response to this with the correct answer is going to receive a free service call. Now, of course, you've got to be in our service area, which is Oak Hill to Palm Coast. But if you answer this correctly, Diane, I think you're tracking this for me, or Lindsay, then ProServe Pools will be happy to give you a free service call. Okay, so what happens? Here's the question. What happens every single year in Florida? Every year. What do we get every year in Florida?
We have hurricanes as the first answer.
All right. Well, good job. Whoever said hurricanes, you are right. And whether we get a full blown Andrew or not, or Katrina or not, we still every single time get, and that's the winner. The hurricane is the answer winner. We still get winds that blow crazy, and the winds, and we get tremendous rain. So, what do you think that does? That hurricane does to a pool? Well, it is common that we are digging, moving, excavating trees out of pools. I don't know how many trees we've had to pull out of pools through the years, but that's absolutely happens. In addition to the labor it takes to remove the debris, the trees, the limbs, whether it's a full-blown tree or maybe it's just organic debris. So like the picture I just put up now on the right, that's a commercial pool. That organic debris is moving fast to put nitrogen into the water. And the rain itself brings nitrogen and phosphates. So think about your maintenance team that has to remove that debris. That's not typical on their list of things to do. And now they've got a lot more work because the pool is one item of many. So whether you got a maintenance crew that takes care of the pool or you got a service company, they've got more work to do than that. They got more hours to work. So you're looking at overtime for your maintenance team, and or you're looking for your pool company most certainly is not, that's an act of God. So that's not part of their monthly charge. They've got to charge for that because there's extra labor. What, in addition to the labor, what do you think all that rain and organic debris did to the water chemistry? Well, now it's not balanced. So they've got extra chemicals. And remember, those chemicals have doubled in price. Liquid chlorine, those little yellow jugs that you see the guys bring around, you see them in the back of the trucks, that chemical has doubled in price since COVID. And if they're not charging you for that, then one, they're going to go out of business, or two, they're not adding the chemicals, which is even worse. So make sure that you're cognizant and you've prepared for that charge through the years. And you may say, well, my service company didn't charge me in the past, or we worked out with the maintenance guys. I would change that mindset because your service company, their labor costs have greatly increased. And of course, you're paying more for your maintenance guys today than you've ever paid for. So be clear on that. So budget for what happens every year in that storm, and also budget for the rebalance of that pool. And if no one's saying, hey, we rebalance it, ask them to rebalance it. That's important because it'll take care of that heater and the finish. Let me move to a part that I get pretty excited about is on the equipment side. Okay, so take a look. Imagine it's the Labor Day weekend's coming up. You just got past the 4th of July, and thank God for that. The 4th in our business is the roughest day of the year. And what really keeps that pool beautiful and clean is the heartbeat, and it's the pool pump. So there's nothing sexy about it, nothing real exciting, but if it doesn't do its job, I've seen cams like shaking as they get ready for the 4th of July because they got a full house, and you'll have that again, of course, on Labor Day. So take a look at this picture on the left, picture on the right. Both of these pumps are the same color. They're that beige color. So the pump is the front part of the unit. The back is the motor. So they're both the same color. They're both made and manufactured by the same company in the same manufacturing plant, probably by the same people. But they're very different. One of these pumps saves $300 a month in electricity, and the other one costs $300 more in electricity. But you can't tell by looking at it. One of them will last longer and will not be as loud, so you won't hear it when you're sitting on the pool, when your guests are sitting on the pool deck. One of them, when that pump room floods, and every pump room floods, every pump room does. One of them, when that pump room floods, is going to cause that motor on that pump to no longer work, and the other one will not. So the one on the left has been raised. So you want to identify, what we're trying to do now is identify, do I just put an old motor, a new motor on an old pump, or do I upgrade to new technology and replace that old pump with new technology that's going to save me $300 um, every single month in electricity. So whether you believe in global warming or not, or you care about the environment or not, or you care about an electric bill or not, um, that's math. And we've been running these metrics now for about 6 years. And the pump on the left consistently saves about $300 a month in electricity. We've also learned that if we raise these pumps 16, 20, 24 inches off the ground, then when that pump room floods, because it will, um, then now once you pump down that pump room from flooding, you can restart your new pump and not and continue to operate that pool. So one piece we've struggled with versus, do we just put another motor, an old energy hog motor on that existing pump or not? As a pool contractor and as a company, we've really struggled ethically with that. What's the right ethical decision? We'll have an HOA that just says, listen, we don't have the budget for that. And I've really struggled with it. So to me, I think finance it, do what you have to do, but it's the wrong answer. Since COVID, those motors do not last the way that they used to. If you get a year to year and a half out of it, that's pretty amazing. But to close out on this, budget for replacement versus repair, because the other problem you get into when you put a new motor on an old pump, you're still got an old pump. You still got old plumbing. So make sure and look at the total picture of, what's the return on investment? What's the payback period of making that investment? And that's what it is. All right. So to help with relevance to part of the story I just gave and into this section about sustainability and new technologies and inefficiencies, I'm going to give a kind of an idea here. So imagine it wasn't too long ago. I've got gray hair, and it wasn't when I first learned how to travel, I used a map, and I'm sure you did too. For the folks that are my age on this, before we had what we have today. And Grandpa, that's what we're going to call him. Grandpa can find a restaurant in Italy. He can do it. He can look on the map. He can walk in a place. He can get direction from somebody. All those things can happen. But we know that that's not as efficient and it's not as knowledgeable as using our phones today. So on our phone today, if we're looking for a restaurant, we can at the same time bypass traffic. It's even a point now where it tells you where the cops are, which I don't know how legal that is, but it does it. And it'll tell you if there's a wreck. It'll tell you how many minutes to get there to give you the most economic way to get there. And then it can also give you reviews on the restaurant. Should I go there or not? Well, now, so keep that paradigm in your mind as I walk through these other examples. Smart pumps. So as I gave you the example before, we have consistently seen that pump on the left cost about $330 a month to operate. And it's just math. It's just the number. You can Google this thing and you can look at, if you've got the voltage and you've got the amperage, you can get the watts, and that's what you're paying electricity on. And that pump costs about $330 a month to operate versus the newer technology, the smart pumps, they can get as low as $48. And we can get them a little bit lower than that, but 48 is kind of a number that we're comfortable in almost all cases. And there's a way that we tune that based upon the hydraulics of that pump room. The new pumps can understand bathing load in a certain way that will help you save energy. It can also be set for seasonal adjustments if you have heaters, and it's not as loud, and it's not an energy dumb hog like the one on the left. Another example is salt systems. So let me tell you, if you've not been down in a commercial pump room or worked at a commercial property, again, it's not residential. It is so much different. On the left, you'll notice where that person, see those yellow jugs? You've seen a lot of pool guys, pool people carry those. Well, in this case, they've got a stack of yellow jugs that they had to transport to that room. So if you got a maintenance team today that's taking their personal truck, driving down to the local chemical store, pool store, filling up yellow jugs, putting them in their personal truck, driving back to your property. I would probably do some diligence on that and understand, what's my total cost of having that done? Understand that cost, understand the liability, the risk that if there's an accident, just be real cognizant of that. Make sure that you're just aware of what all those risks are. Um, the more effective way to do it is to have the picture on the right. So that's a real pump room. That's a dirty old commercial pump room. And look at that red circle. That's a salt system. So you can produce on site the chlorine that's needed to replace what you see on the left right there. So what's the payback to that? The payback is, what's the risk of somebody getting in an accident transporting that chlorine? What's the cost of having them have to lift up those and carry them and pour them in? Um, and then chlorine I mentioned to you that it's doubled in price since COVID. And it's also going to increase next month, is the guidance that we've been given. So it's not coming down. We were hopeful and optimistic, but it's not. For some reason, it's continuing to rise on us in this industry. The picture on the right, those costs for those commercial salt systems have not increased at the same level. And they now have a much shorter payback period so that they actually will pay for themselves. They also, you use much less of other chemicals when you're using a salt system, when you educate yourself on how to operate them correctly and maintain them correctly. So that's an example of salt systems that now I do believe for every commercial pool should have a salt system. If you went through that process in years past, you need to revisit that today, because they do pay for themselves now. And with the cost of labor going where it is, it makes it even more important. All right, let's now talk about chemical controllers and chemical feeders. So this is in our market. If you've ever been down a pump room, this is what's called a stenner. It's a chemical feeder that is prevalent throughout the market that we serve. This machine's been out for 50 plus years. It's before I started in this industry, and but it's dumb. And what I mean by dumb is this feeder, and that's what it's called. It's a feeder. There's a dial. If you look, there's a little arrow there. Your maintenance team or your pool service provider, they set that dial to a certain setting that will feed X number of gallons per day of chlorine to the pool. So it could be 2 gallons, could be 20 gallons. And then that feeder, there's a second one by code for acid to manage the pH. Now, what these dumb feeders don't know, they don't know how many people are in the water. They don't know the true chlorine and pH level. They just know that they've been told to feed 5 gallons, 3 gallons, 10 gallons, whatever the case may be. They don't know that it rained last night, which means now we've got to adjust both the chlorine and the pH level. They don't know that it's the 4th of July weekend and the typical bathing load is 10 people per hour, and now we're at 40 people per hour. They don't know any of that information. So as you move to smart systems, like I'm showing you a picture now, this is a controller. So it controls that slave feeder to the left. So what it does do, it is smart. It does know that, wait a minute, my chlorine level is going down. My oxidizer is going down. My sanitizer is going down. What's protecting my swimmer is going down, because there's more bathers in the pool, which is bringing it down, or it rained, and we may need to make adjustments to the pH and to the sanitizer, the chlorine level. It also can alert if there's a problem. So it can tell the management team or your pool service provider or your maintenance crew, whoever is the responsible person for that pool. It can notify them that, hey, we've got a problem. A feeder's broke, or the pH is too high, or the chlorine is too low. Any of those kind of things can now be alerted. So as you look at, going back to the example of Grandpa and his map, Grandpa and his maps is that dumb feeder on the left that has no idea about anything. The smartphone is the controller on the right. It controls and it alerts and it tells you just like your smartphone will now, hey, there's a cop up there, slow down. This controller is going to tell you where the problem area is. So saying, I think it's unethical, and we're not really doing our fiduciary responsibility to the property if we don't have a controller on a commercial property. And they will pay for themselves. So what really, really, really happens at your pool, if you do not have a controller, is your chlorine level every night spikes and every day drops, because chlorine consumption is much higher when the UV rays are out during the day. And that's exactly what happens every night. If you just have the dummy feeder that's on the left, you've got to ask yourself if that's ethical or not. I struggle with that. Okay, let me move to, no, let me cover one more thing. So I believe there is a payback to making an investment, making the right ethical decision, and having a controller that's on the right, because it will reduce your chemical cost and it will produce a safer pool over time, because you're not just dumping chemicals into the pool, you're managing how much is actually added. All right, let's move. I think I covered those. Whoops, back up. Check, see if I missed anything. No, I think I got that. Let me move into what we see as best practices. Let me tell you how we get ready for season. So right now we're July 23rd. We got about 5 more weeks of season, and then we'll flip into the snowbird heater season. But right now we're heads down, making sure filters are clean, chemicals are right. Those, we're in the middle of the Super Bowl, right? So we're focused on that. What we did back in February to get ready for this season is we proactively have learned through the years that we go to our properties and we make all best efforts to get them to let us replace filters. So let me talk about proactive. Proactive versus, we can say the be cliches and say reactive, but I'm going to call it failure. Failure, proactive versus failure. So annual filter replacement. Don't even think about it. Please write this down. Just replace it. So the AC company that helps us with all of our heating and cooling needs, they proactively come to us and make sure that we're replacing filters. They give us a checklist. So in your case, I'm sharing, make sure and have in your budget to have the filters replaced annually, and do it in the early spring before we get hit by season. Now, there's going to be someone that's sitting back right now saying, oh my God, we typically don't do this, but about every 2 to 3 years. Well, that's a problem. That's a mistake, an absolute mistake. What that's causing is more strain on your pump. No matter what anyone tells you, if you don't replace your filters, your pump is both the swimmer with clarity and the health of the swimmer, and with your pump, it's going to have pump duress on that pump. It's just physics. So replace the filter once a year. If you don't, the other problem would be if your maintenance team's taking care of it, they may not be cognizant of it, but they're having to backwash more often. Their filter run cycles are much less, which wastes water, which wastes chemicals, which wastes labor. So just replace the filters. Not a big deal. And that is an expense, but it's got to be done. Secondly, proactive planning. Remember that pool, just imagine it's the 4th of July, it's Labor Day weekend, and all of a sudden your pump goes out. That's an emergency, right? You got a full house and you cannot close that pool. Now the code says if there's no filtration, you must close the pool. And you're sitting there now going, my God, I can't do it though. So there's an easy solution to that. Keep a spare pump on hand. I know it's an expense, but the reality is that pump's going to go bad anyway, whether it's this week, next month, or 6 months from now. Right now, we are still having a challenge. Almost everything in the supply chain has been fixed, except for there are some pumps that you cannot get same day or next day, and they still can't even tell you when you're going to get them. So I would definitely make sure that you have a spare pump that's ready and it's on unions. So it's easily to take on and off so that when the problem occurs, you can get a service technician out there to make that replacement. And remember, anytime you're exchanging a pump, you need to have a licensed pool contractor, not a licensed electrician, but a pool contractor make that change. There's a lot that goes into making sure, and I'll give you a case right now. So we've gone out on jobs where someone bought the wrong pump and it couldn't meet the demand, the number of gallons per minute required by code. They had it installed. They bought it on eBay or excuse me, Amazon, and it was installed by their, I think it was the maintenance team. And they were required to have, let's say 180 gallons a minute of flow, but that pump that they got was the wrong pump and it would do 30 gallons too few. So that's a problem. So now they're stuck with a pump that won't even do the job and they failed inspection. So just be aware of that. So anyway, to close out, make sure, be proactive, have a main circulation pump on hand. Let me, another one would be, we're getting ready to, it's July, be thinking about that heater right now. We're going to blink our eye and it's going to be, we're going to have to turn those heaters on for the snowbirds coming down. So make sure and proactively do what's called a pre-season heater check, and to make sure that that heater is ready, it's cleaned out. They do get soot on them, so you can either clean them or replace them. That'll be up to whoever does your service, your heater work. So make sure and get that done. That's another example. Okay, let me move to the vendor communications. Accurate budgeting is preparing for the reality the best that you can in an imperfect world. I'd like to share with you perspective, and I wanted to come across very positive, and that's why we're doing this session today, this training today. So please take this part of the class as coming from someone who is very passionate about the safety of the swimmer, and a very takes our responsibility. We have a moral responsibility to the swimmers and to the properties that have entrusted us. And that's why we work on 100, with their 100 plus properties that we're managing today. So please take it that way. When the pool technician who cleans your pool, let me tell you a little bit about the personality type of a pool technician. Again, we've got 30 folks that on our team here, and I'm very thankful. But a pool technician is very shy typically. They're there, they're cleaning that tile, they're vacuuming out the debris, they're smiling at the guests, they're getting down in that dirty and dingy pump room and cleaning filters and seeing stuff that you don't want to ever have to look at. Here's what they're not salespeople. So they're not people that are trained or want to bring a problem to you. So if you're a CAM or someone responsible for getting something approved at a pool, your maintenance team's the same. The maintenance team they don't like bringing bad news that a pump's gone bad or a chemical feeder's broke or plumbing's, whatever the case is, right? So when they communicate to you, so this is vendor communications as an example, when they communicate to you, hey, this is broke, your chemical feeder no longer works, be polite with them and recognize that they didn't want to bring you that bad news. In fact, they're nervous as they're saying they're talking to you. I know how these guys think. I've worked with them long enough. So remember, they're trying to protect you as the licensed CAM or the board member responsible for that, and the safety of the swimmers. So when they bring that to you, engage with them, try to help them, because they're just bringing to you what code is. The second item would be open and honest. Again, I met with a manufacturer this morning, and we were talking more on the residential side about how homeowners sometimes don't necessarily, they're not transparent. They're trying to get a warranty claim done, so they're not very transparent on the true install date of something. So when you're communicating with a vendor, that, by the way, that vendor wants to help you. They really do. In this industry, they really do want to help, and they want to do a good job. So when they come to you and say, how old are these filters? Well, we just replaced them. Now, if that was 6 months ago, that was 6 months ago. It's already gone through a season. And if it was a year ago, that's definitely not just. that needs to be thrown away. That diaper needs to be changed. So go back, get the data. The vendor there is there to really help the property and help our customers. Um, we've had properties that think that they're trying to save money when actually what they're doing is they're working against themselves, and they're frustrating their on-site staff, especially the maintenance team. Those guys work really hard. So just make sure you're communicating accurately with the team that's trying to help you. I'll cover one more piece here, I think, around more long term, which are renovation budgeting. When we get asked, hey, how often should this be done? I typically recommend to commercial properties, budget for 10 years to renovate your pool. And when you get 12 and 15, everyone's got a big smile on their face. Now, the reality is the cost difference, though, between those extra 2 to 5 years um, is more, but you've gotten 2 to 5 more years out of it that you've been able to save up your reserves. So, you know, the other piece of that during a renovation is that's the right time to fix leaks in the pump room, as an example, and in the plumbing, and then change out valves. And everything's a lot easier when that pool is drained, a lot safer. You lower the risk and the liability when the pool's drained when you're changing valves in the pump room. Um, the other part is, and let me show you a picture of this. Go back. That's interesting. Give me 1 second. The other part is when you're renovating that pool, you want to make major changes. So if you look at, this is the same pool, picture on the left, picture on the right. On the left, that's the old 1980s, 1970s, 1960s way um, of a pool. The pool on the right has been modernized. So you want to make sure that as you're spending that $50,000 to renovate your pool, which is the biggest asset you've got on the property, that you're really looking at, hey, let's make it right. And so the pool on the left, when you do that renovation, you're having to use old cheap clay tile as an example that breaks, very prone to breaking. Versus the pool on the right, we've eliminated that tile on the outside of the beam, which you can still have it there if you like. We just finished it off this way, and we've added a coping product to the top to really modernize it, make it look cleaner. So just keep that in mind too when you're going through that renovation process. Let me go back. I covered that. Okay, let me go through a couple things on key takeaways. I think the most important thing from a key takeaway is to have a mindset as a board member that you have and as a CAM, we have and as a service provider, we have a moral responsibility to the safety of the swimmers. That I tell my team that responsibility supersedes any budget or past approaches. So past approaches would be, we've done it this way for years and it's all kept the pool water blue. Well, based on the technology we have today, we know that that's no longer good enough. It's just not. I was at a property yesterday where I told them, you've got to close this pool or I'm going to call the health department. I mean, that's an ethical. I have a moral responsibility for that. Secondly, don't think that the 2 days out of 365 that the health department comes to check the pool, that is keeping your association free from risk and liability. Um, that's not the case. It really does not. It does not. So many times I'll hear, well, we passed our health inspection. It doesn't matter. And they could have missed it. They're human too. It doesn't relinquish that there's a responsibility to get that thing right. And I guess the last piece I'll make is, we all love grandpa. However, you don't want to be that grandpa. You do not. Using a paper map, it's not efficient. Take the mindset of, number one, budget for the storms. They come every year. They're like clockwork. We know they're coming. Number two, be proactive by keeping a spare chemical feeder and main circulation pump ready. You're going to need it. Number three, replace the filters annually. Be proactive about that. Don't wait until they failed. that's not the right approach. Just have it as part of your plan. Change that AC filter in your office. Change those filters in the pump room, and throw the old ones away. Don't let them hang out forever. Just throw them away. And I guess I can open it up if there's a question. If not, I'll probably go to some of the test questions. But I'm going to pause here just for a minute.
Okay, everyone, if you want to put any questions for Sean into the chat to everyone, we'll go ahead and read those aloud so that they get caught on video. If not, we'll start the interactive quiz and get you wrapped up. Any questions? Okay, let's start. Oh, wait. Yep, we'll be talking about CEU credit at the end. When speaking about renovations, is there an end to that question? When speaking about renovations. Okay, let's go into the quiz. And yeah, if you guys can just put your answers into the chat to everyone, Sean will just read the questions and then you can put your answer in the chat and then he'll say which one is the correct answer.
All right, we got 10 of them, so let's get started. Number 1. Which of the following is a common reason for increased pool chemical costs? Pool parties, increased rainfall, supply chain issues, lifeguard shortages.
Uh-oh, we've got a couple different answers. We've got C, we've got B, we've got A, B, C.
All right, good. Supply chain issues is the one that we'll say for today. Going back to what I said, our so we're all in this thing together, have doubled. Chemical costs have doubled. Supply chain issues were definitely part of that during COVID, and we're still getting guidance. It's unbelievable that there's issues there. All right, let's go to number 2. What's the benefit of using salt systems or UV? So I'll give you a hint. Go back to the pictures I showed with the yellow jugs. So is it because there's a higher chlorine use? Is it a lower upfront cost?
Everyone's putting C.
Yes. The payback
Good
period
job, everyone.
for salt system is now paid for itself. And in addition, I'll add, forget about cost for just a minute. Let's pretend like we're Bill Gates and money doesn't matter to us. It's more humane. Those people that take care of your pool, it makes their job easier. And trust me, you want to make anyone on your team and your vendors and your maintenance staff, that's your team. You want to make their job easier. Okay. All right, number 3, labor cost increases can be attributed to what?
Okay, let's see what we got, everyone. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so whether you have a CPO, now let me explain what that means. Certified pool operator. So you got a maintenance person, maintenance staff. You have paid for them to get their weekend course, which is a certified pool operator, or they did it online, or you hire a company. All labor costs are up. So that's the answer. Storm cleanup budgeting should include.
Okay, we've
Think
got
about the picture I showed.
all C's so far coming in.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. And I would add to number 4, make sure that you've got a relationship with someone that's licensed to replace the equipment that's required after a storm. Again, a CPO, an electrician, they cannot legally install pool pumps. Number 5, equipment should be replaced when
A lot of bees coming in, a lot of bees coming in, all bees. Like
Yay. B's
smart
the answer.
attendees.
Don't wait till it's green. That's not ethical. That's not. And that, by the way, it costs more when it goes green. So don't wait till it's green. When you hear that pump motor starting to make a tinge sound, someone says, "Hey, what's going on?" That's the time to get it done. All right. And better yet, have a spare on site. Number 6, smart pumps and LED lighting can help.
Okay, a bunch of C's coming in, all C's.
All right, somebody put in, and this we'll give another service call away for the first person that puts this dollar value in. If how much more does it typically cost in dollars to run an old energy hog pump versus a new energy efficient pump? How many dollars per month is the additional cost?
We have Niraj came in at 300.
Yay! All right. Well, let's get his information. That's right, 300 bucks. Okay, let's number 7. Preventive maintenance helps communities buy.
Got a lot of bees coming in, all bees.
Emergencies are stressful and expensive. We don't want the stress. You don't want the stress. Number 8, a best practice for budgeting includes.
Got a D's coming in, all D's. A lot of D's.
All right. Yes. Really look at what is not just the initial but ongoing cost. That's exactly right. And that salt is another great example of that. Perfect example. And energy efficient pumps, those are great examples. Number 9, which of the following is not a chemical option?
A lot of mixed. We've got B's, we've got D's.
Oh, that's okay. That's why we're going to have the right answer for you right here. So the point in this question is to say that's legacy. That is not what we should always be using, especially since the cost has gone up and it's labor intensive and it's corrosive. Long-term vendor relationships help by.
We've got all A's coming in so far. A.
Yeah, I love A because I love it when we know how this business works. New board, new cam, new service provider, but it's this cycle where I love when we can go back to a pool and we've been there for 4 decades, 40 years, and we know the history of that pool. So we love helping with that. Well, I think that's all we had. I appreciate if you can get me the 2 folks that won the service call, we'll take care of them. And thanks for having me on today.
Okay, everyone, if you have any questions, we have just a few minutes left. I'm putting into the chat for CAMs only. Please email your CAM license number and the name as it appears on your license to Lindsay@yourcoastalliving.com. You're going to want to go to the chat button and make sure to see from me to everyone exactly the email address that you need to send your CAM license and your CAM license number and the name that appears on your license. If you're a Richard and you put Rick, that will get kicked back. So please be sure to give us the name as it appears on your license. Also, I'm going to put in Sean's information. It's up on the screen, but this way you can cut and paste it right here out of the chat. Feel free to give them a call, and check out their website. We highly recommend them. We know a number of associations that work with them and that are very happy. We have management companies we know that work with them and are so happy. They're a family-run business. They give back to their community, and we're just honored to have them participating in the program. Sean, we've got some great presentation, great presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank yous. So thank you, everyone. Sean, thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
We'll see you soon. And
Okay, bye.
then, yeah, everybody, if you put your license number in there, we're not going to get it. You're going to need to go up to the chat and I'll do it one more time for cams only. Please email Lindsay your cam number and your name as it appears on your license, and don't send it in chat because Lindsay will not get that. We also need a record of it coming into her so that you're following the directions here so that we can get you the credit that you need. We're going to be starting here in just 1 minute when our next presenter gets online. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sean.